Greetings, everyone. Today, I've got a very special guest. And before I introduce this fine fellow, the idea of today is to actually review a different faction that is not Tau. And I've been introduced to this lovely person by one of my Discord members, who has told me that this guy is effectively just like me. He's a faction specialist and loves everything GSC. So we're going to talk about the GSC Codex. So without further ado, everybody, this is Floof. Floof, great to have you on show. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really good. Thank you for having me. And honestly, really excited to be here and do this with you.
No, it's super good. And I always love engaging with faction specialists because we just like that one thing, and we do that one thing, supposedly, according to results and other people, really well. So, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. So, tell everyone, like, who are you? You know, why GSC? You know, what's your background, buddy?
Yeah. My name is Floof Cox. I am a faction specialist for Genestealer Cults. I've been in this faction ever since basically Codex came out in 9th. I had them a little bit beforehand, but that was just kind of fun, haha, collecting. I'm someone who has just been, to put it nicely, a bit of a threat on the West Coast, over here in the States. And I've been winning a lot of tournaments. I've got 2 GTs under my belt. I take this faction very seriously. I love it to death. It is, in my eyes, one of the coolest factions in this game. And I just love everything about it. I'm in the cult, brother. I'm in the cult.
You're in the sneaky cult, man. Sneaky cult.
Yeah.
So
I got my tag and everything.
So how long have you been playing 40k for?
I've been playing ever since basically right before COVID hit. It was like late 2019. I had a couple Magic buddies that were like, "Hey, we're getting into this game. It looks pretty cool. It's plastic instead of paper. You get to build all these cool models." And I was like, "Cool, fine, great." The guy I talked to at my local game store brings me over, and I'm like, "Hey, I like playing aggro decks and all this type of stuff. Like, what's like a really aggressive army?" And he shows me Tyranids, funnily enough. That was like my first faction to get into. So getting to Tyranids, and then I'm in this hobby for like a year, and I'm mostly just painting because everything had shut down. What a time to get into the game, right?
Yeah, no, right.
And then what it was I had a birthday, and like my buddy was like, "Hey, you're into this like 50k thing. Here's this model that someone at the shop told me I should get you." And it was a Locust for Genestealer Cults. And I was like, "Oh, this guy looks actually pretty cool." And that's what started me to like look into Genestealer Cults. And I was like, "Oh, they're the only faction that actually is like technically allies with Tyranids, so it like kind of works." And I started collecting them. And then I didn't know how to run them because 8th GSC was like reading like arithmetic to me at that time, being a new player. I was like, I don't understand anything that's going on here. But when the 9th Codex came out, I was like, this looks hype. And that's when I got in, and I've just loved the faction, how it plays. I haven't gone back since. So I've been in this about 4 years now. And then competitively I've been in like year and a half, I want to say, is when I like have started taking it seriously.
So it's really interesting because obviously, like, lockdown was a time where, you know, I suppose we had a big spike in people collecting because, you know, sat at home, lockdown, nice little thing to do, build models, paint models, and it's a great way to get rid of some of that hobby shame for those veterans out there. But from a newer player perspective, getting it all together, and then obviously you said that you hit the competitive scene, you've been doing extremely well, so congratulations on that. You know, as a newer generation player coming in and being like, "Hey, I really love this faction, I'm a die-hard fan of it, and let me show you how it works." I always fear faction specialists rather than the faction themselves, and clearly you've been terrorizing, you say the West Coast?
Yeah, the West Coast.
West Coast.
I 3-0 more often than I don't 3-0 is the clearest way to put it. Or X and O, I guess I should say, because there's also GTs in there. You know, there's bigger events I do well at as well. I'm not just a guy who's just mugging RTTs all the time.
Yeah, you're not just going around clubbing seals, man. You're actually representing the faction and doing extremely well. I mean, what would you
Yeah.
say is your play style then? Are you like an aggressive player, or are you more of kind of defensive, tricksy? Because for me, I see GSC as being very tricksy. But where do you stand on that?
Hmm. I it's weird because I would say I'm aggressively tricksy, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
To where, yeah, I'm a T3 body with a 5-up armor save. There is no point for me to be behind a wall because I'm gonna probably die regardless. So I'm gonna be right in front of your face, getting as much value for myself, sacrificing everything I can to like take away people's movement faces, just charging random stuff in. One of my favorite stuff was back when I was bringing the 120 neophyte lists was drop down, shoot a bunch of stuff. Okay, 6 units are making 9-inch charges now. Let's go. Let's see what we can tie in and gunk up. And I'm almost like Death Guard in terms of like I want to take away everything that you can do. I want to just start like clawing away at your options. I'm debuffing you essentially. Um, and yeah, just always in your face from turn one with pure strains being the most mobile thing, and they're super fun to use. I love the little buggers; they're great. And so, yeah, it's aggressive for the first 2 turns. All right, everything's dead. What tricks can we use to make sure that we lock this game out?
Because I
Hope that
think,
makes sense.
yeah, it did make sense. Because I think there is a comparison between, I suppose, GSC and Tau in the fact that you have you do have a lot of mobility, and I think
Hmm.
the mobility is slightly different from Tau. Tau historically mobility comes from the forms of fast moving units, whether they be like breaches and devilfish or board control that you can get, and obviously you've got ways of getting crisis suits moving around the board, so on and so forth, so we can kind of react
Yep.
to the battle in front of us. And choose a flank, crush it, and just slow enemies down, and use various like infiltrating units, scouting units, trading pieces as we call them. But GSC has a different type of mobility where it comes from just coming from the shadows, if you will, deep striking in, jumping out, clogging up areas of the board. So there is a bit of a water around the rock philosophy with both of our armies, and I've always found that that matchup is extremely difficult for both players because you have to kind of see where we're where you're kind of choosing your battles and react. And at any one given moment, if somebody makes a mistake, it's huge. So I feel that Tau and GSC
Massive.
have a very similar philosophy, but are also kind of scared of each other. I'm always scared about GSC, regardless of whether I've beat them or whether I've lost against them. I'm just like, oh god, this is going to be a real headache. And what's your experience? Have
Yeah.
you played against Tau a lot? 'Cause I know you probably have, knowing
Yeah.
Holodiscus.
One of my closest friends is, yeah, the guy who introduced us Holodiscus, and I play him basically every other event. You've taught him well. First it was just he was learning from my bullcrap that I like to do to people. Um, at the start of the edition, I'm like stringing 20 neophytes out in no man's land to stop scouts, and now he was doing that with me with Kroot the other day, and I'm just like, I don't like it. I did this specifically because I wanted to do this to other people. So I have a lot of time matchups, and yeah, you're very right. Every time we get matched up, we're just like, ah, man, I don't want to play you. This is gonna suck. And it really is because yeah, Tau hurt. Surprisingly, fun fact, Tau hurt when they shoot you. But GSC kind of had that edge to where, at least with Index, it's a little different now depending on which detachments you're going with. But with Index, it was really I pick the engagement.
Yeah,
I will always shoot first, right? My turn one, if I go first, I'm giving you nothing. We're both skipping our first turn. The game starts on turn two. Uh, and that can be really brutal for a lot of armies to deal with. But I think Tau, especially with like Breacher Fish combos and all that kind of stuff, it's hard for GSC to crack something and eat what was in that thing. So it was rough, like figuring out that balance was very important. And yeah, it's volatile either way. Like you said, whoever messes up first is can really get hurt on the crackback. And it can games can be decided by just one misplay, in my opinion.
I think spot. I think it's the reason. I remember when GSC were terrorizing the scene, and I think
Mhm.
my love for a little sneaky boy, and my GSC within my Tau is always Darkstrider and his Pathfinder bros. Darkstrider having no deep strike within 12. When I put him on the board on GSC, they're like, "Oh, come on, man, I hate that guy." He was protecting my 6-man crisis suits all game, been like, "No, I don't want anything to do with your bloody bombs that you're going to chuck at me, your demo charges. Nope, please no." And it's like little tech pieces like that. But I think it really resonates what you said about the whole tricks things, being able to kind of like dictate the pace of the game. So I think that is absolutely a perfect segue to ask like a couple of things first. We're going to go into the codex, but you've obviously got your own YouTube channel that you've been doing a lot of, or you're planning to do a lot of content around the detachment. So where can people find you on YouTube?
Yeah, on YouTube, I go under Nexus Floof. Recently just started up the channel. I've got 2 VODs that were from earlier things, but I recently just put out 2 videos going over the different detachments, which ones I think are stronger, and then basically a guide on how to get into GSC for any of the newer players or people just wanting to learn, like, oh, I really want to play Outlander Claw, but I don't have any bikes. What's good for me to do? And it's basically an instruction guide on like which box sets are good for you to pick up, ways to like kit bash characters, because GSC is very, very character hungry, and man, that hurts when everything is $35 a pop.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So yeah, it's over at Nexus Floof on YouTube. And any and all support, I'll be going over anything and everything GSC. Basically going to be doing the Kyle thing, but with more hair and on a different Xenos faction.
Love it already. Love it. The banter, the shade. I don't think I've ever gone on any kind of video on stream without someone mentioning the fact that I'm bold and beautiful. Yeah, that's how I hear it in my head. Bold and beautiful, but yeah. Man.
What I see it is that we're just inverted. You know, I don't have a beard because I can't grow one, so it's just up here. It's just we turn the head upside down.
Oh, pretty much, man. I woke up one day, I'd shaved my head, and then suddenly I had a beard. That's the way it went down. But anyway, glorious hair on top or on the bottom of your head aside. Please, guys, go and check out the Nexus Floof on YouTube. I'll put in the description and the link in the link in the description of this video. And also with faction specialists, we're always heavily involved in discords. Obviously I have my own, the Puretide Program, and you can check that out if you don't already know what it is. Please click on the link below. But obviously you're involved in the GSC Discord, I imagine.
Yes, yeah, it's just the general, and I don't have like one for myself or anything like that. So if anyone just looks, I honestly found it by just Googling GSC Discord.
Yeah.
There's like a link on Reddit or something like that. I can get you an invite link to put in the description as well.
Perfect. Sounds great.
Yeah. I talk in there. There's also a lot of other people. Eric Tat, who's also a big GSC guy. Danny P, who's on Team Poland. He's in there talking all the time. Yeah, there's a lot of resources. It's not just me. For anyone getting into GSC, that Discord is fantastic. There's players of all different levels. We have other people who put out different content as well. We're working towards, making this faction bigger so that people have resources on getting into it,
Some might say you're starting a cult.
Exactly. Listen, it's fine. The punch is just sugar-free. It doesn't taste weird, I promise.
So, should we get started in... Like, show us that sexy new book that you've got. Like that, the special edition. Look at it. It's gorgeous. Is that an aberrant on the front with a massive hammer?
Oh, it's the Abominant.
The Abominant.
Yeah, this one's with the double face and everything like that. It's our special little boy. He is crouched over recently. He's just taking a nap. It's just a Space Marine taking a nap. Don't worry about it. He totally has the other half of his body, I'm sure. Yeah, with the nice little trim that they're doing, and then on the back, it's just got a clean, nice symbol. Dude, this book looks so gorgeous. Just visually, I just love it. I got it last night, and I was just like, ooh, time to read through everything.
Yeah, I did the exact same with my new Tau one, with the blue pages and the nice little blue emblems, and then even the cards and the shiny cards. So it's addictive, It's like, not plastic crack, it's book crack. And So shall we jump in to obviously what were your initial reactions when the codex came out? Because there's been a lot of internet bullshit saying, oh, they're trash
Yeah,
and
the
blah,
doom
blah,
posting.
blah, blah, blah. Whereas I know there'll be a lot of people out there that maybe are disappointed and that will look for guidance. And obviously, you being a faction specialist with GSC, I want to know what your thoughts. So what were your initial reactions when you picked up the Codex?
Yeah, so the Codex isn't like, it's not Sisters. It's not the greatest. It's not, the four-armed god's gift to mankind. But I think it is good. I think there is good stuff in here. I think especially with how the MFM set us for points, there are some things that I think I would like to see go down over time, but everyone can say that about something in their army, right? Overall, though, with the flavor of each detachment, how they look, how diverse they are, I I love this book. I think there's a lot of opportunity for GSC to be very adaptive throughout the overall meta of the game. To where, say, maybe Xenocrete isn't good into the newest meta, we can pivot into Outlander Claw, and we can deliver these very different game plans that I think it would be very hard to pin down GSC. At the same time, I think yes, there is a best attachment, but I think there's also three that you absolutely could be bringing. It's kind of like Orcs, to where yes, Bully Boys was the strongest for a while, but if you go to a big event, you're still going to see Warhorde, you're still going to see Green Tide, and they're still going to do well. And I think GSC's in that spot, and I think because we're in that spot, the book is good. I like it. There are some things that I'm not happy with, which we can certainly get into. Um, but overall, just the base, I'm happy. I've been liking the book a lot. So I hope others will like that as well. Obviously, there's doom posting because demo charges don't kill anything and everything in the game anymore. Whoops! Now I have to play the game. But I think we're still good, and we're back to being a very cheap horde army. And that's why I like the cult to begin with.
And I think I'll be honest right now. This is the first time I'm looking at the GSC Codex. I skim read it or read a bit on Goonhammer articles and stuff like that. But I'm very much a player that learns by doing and what's in front of me rather than sitting and analysing my enemy. I can do it to a certain degree, but I learn by the actual game itself. But from a glance, for me, regardless of power level, and I think we talked about this before, it's like I looked at, okay, well, they're a horde-based army. They're going to have plenty of resources, so plenty of ways of playing missions, plenty of ways of playing secret missions, and also secondaries as well. So from a fundamental point of view, if you can play the actual game of 40k without any rules, stratagems, and stuff very well, and the same with secondaries, then you're in a good spot, regardless of the power level within. The power level comes from how can you match up to other factions in the game. So from my perspective, I thought, well, Horde is going to be a big thing in the meta right now, as we're seeing with Green Tide, even to a point of MSU Sisters, MSU Guard, loads of bodies, loads of stuff just to do the core primary and secondary of the game, and that's always a good thing. So personally, without knowing any of the combos, and I'm sure you're going to kind of tell us a few of the top detachments and top tricks, but that is in a good spot in the game. And would you say that the Codex is actually balanced? Would you say GW have done a good job of that?
Yes, with a small asterisk. I would say it's I give it a B plus for internal balance. I think it's kind of hard to say it's a really balanced codex, because I'm coming from the 9th edition GSC codex, which I think was one of the best codexes ever printed.
Broken.
In terms of just internal balance, everything just clicked and moved. Crossfire, be still my heart, I will miss you. I have a mantle in the other room just with the with the rule sheet of Crossfire. I'm kidding, but I think it's good. There's some stuff datasheet wise that I'm just wow, they were thinking of AdMech when they wrote this. All right, cool. But outside of that, I think it's still a good book. I would say it's pretty internally balanced. I like it a lot.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about what's their army-wide rule? What has that changed at all?
Yes.
Let's just go through it for our viewers. So what is the Cult Ambush?
Let me pull up the page, even though I have this homie memorized. So the army rule is Cult Ambush. There's a whole lot of paragraphs here. Basically, I'm going to tell you, if you die in this army and you are not a car or a character, then you get to roll a dice. On a 5-up, I'm going to set a little blip somewhere on the board that is 9 inches away from my opponent. I get a +1 to that roll as well if it's rounds 1 or 2. So on rounds 1 and 2, it's 4-up. On 3 to 5, it's a 5-up. I set that blip down. If my opponent ever ends a move within 9 inches of the blip, it goes away. However, if they don't, at the end of the movement phase, I can put that unit or any unit in Cult Ambush within 3 inches of that blip. Basically, I get a little 3-inch bubble from like a 40 mil base to set the unit back down. It's a neat rule. I personally don't super like it because it makes it to where all of our units have to be priced to, understand that a third of the time they're going to be coming back. I would obviously any veteran GSC player is going to tell you, I wish we had old Crossfire instead, but it's still fine. It's okay. There are going to be some games to where people just don't have an army rule because they can't roll a 5-up to save their life. That's where a lot of, I think, the Doom posting comes from, is basically if that never goes off, you have overcosted units and no army rule, and the game is difficult. Then there are going to be games to where you make every 5-up known to man and you're playing a 4,000 point games and you're like, well, did I really win because I was good, or did I win because I had twice the amount of stuff than my opponent? It's fine. I think there's a lot of stuff in the detachments. There's at least one stratagem in each detachment, for the most part, that interacts with Cult Ambush in a unique way. It's good. It's not my. I'll be honest. As I try and have a lot of hope for this book and be very up on things, this is my least favorite part. I don't know. I'm hoping that's okay to say, but yeah, this is not my favorite. But we're here, and there are times to where like it does feel cool. You just have these endless hordes of like neophytes and pure strands coming back. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, with the way that they've changed a fundamental thing in the core rules with the MFM about units that can come back to life via a stratagem, it's only once per game.
Yeah,
I think that's why it's a lot harder to pull off, because if everybody else can only do it once and it costs them CP and you can just come back easily all the time, it sometimes feels like you mentioned it right on the nose, you hit the nail right on the head, that sometimes you feel like you're playing with 4,000 points, and as a person across the other end of the table, I'm like, I've killed that unit like 5 times. Like, what the hell? I'm running out of resources. So I think from a balance perspective, I understand it. Obviously, from the GSC point of view, it feels a bit of a massive downgrade. But it's not to say that it's all doom and gloom, because I'm sure you've got some spice to talk about. What about let's pick one of the top detachments that you think we're going to see straight from the get-go. Where do you think a build, or what's the most competitive detachment that we're going to see at events?
So there's two a lot of people are very high on right now. I'll pick one to talk about, but the two I want to make note of is Xenocreed seems to be the most popular, so that's going to be the one I'm going to talk about today. But I think there is, especially at high level play, Outlander Claw, the one that gives our bikes sticky objectives and 2OC and all this stuff. I think that there's so many rules packed into there that it can play like the new jail style list that we've been seeing, where like Space Wolves are like, here's 30 Thunder Calves, you're never leaving your deployment zone. I was doing the same thing with infiltrating neophytes. Kroot have been doing the same thing. Those jail style lists. Yeah. That's where you'll find it. It's going to be an Outlander. I think high level play will really like that. But I think overall, for just anyone getting into GSC, or it's just the easiest to pull off, it's going to be Xenocreed Congregation.
Well, I like the fact that you mentioned Kroot. Yeah, the KFC jail. Unfortunately, KFC have ran out of chicken. They've ran out of chicken. We're on pause right now. The Colonel is indeed having to restock while they adjust their menu. Kroot jail is unfortunately not a thing right now. But okay, so you mentioned
the jail got shut down.
It got shut down. Poor Kroot. They clearly forgot about Crew with all the money that they earned from selling all the models. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Crew. Let's discuss then. You've mentioned the Outlander Claw. Let's go straight into the is it Xenocreed Congregation?
Xenocreed Congregation.
So
yeah.
what's the detachment rule?
The detachment rule, basically, it's stuck to 3 different characters in our book. Basically, how this goes is for every Acolyte hybrid, hybrid metamorph, and Neophyte hybrid unit in our army, if they are being led by a Magus, a Primus, or an Acolyte Icon Ward, then they get full rerolls to advance and rerolls to charge as well. It's not the flashiest rule, but I think this rule is very good. It just does its job, right? It lends the detachment to newer players might want to build lists that are going to just hand their opponent 20 assassination points, right? To where you're like, oh, then I'm just going to take 3 Primuses and 3 Icon Wards and we're going to be good. Sure, but I think there is a way to where you can fine tune it down a little bit to where you only need that on like your key units. It's certainly good with things like the metamorphs in the detachment. Anything actually has a way to either get assault on their weapons or advance and charge. And when you're re-rolling advancing and you're re-rolling your charges, and you have something that's like scouting 6, disembarking from a transport, moving 6, and then re-rolling an advance and a charge, you have a 33-inch threat range from the jump. That's scary. And then you have this missile that's in the middle of your opponent's deployment zone with 10d6 hand flamers. That's just turn 1. Yeah, that's rough to deal with. I don't know who you are to where you're like anyone would think that that's not like a back foot to start on for my opponent, but it's scary. There's ways to basically just give you consistency to where, oh, I rolled a 1 on my advance. Okay, we're gonna re-roll it. I'm getting some CP back on that. Okay, it's a 5-inch charge. All right, well we have innate reroll, so we're just making sure we consistently get in there, right? It's not flashy, but it's good. It just gets you there, and that's all you need. You just need to win. And you don't need to do a backflip while you win.
Especially with some of the new deployment maps, right? Tipping point, for example. You're just like, well, I've got a scout move, so I can deploy aggressively and then scout move defensively, and then or just go full send.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love it. There's also great plays with just the scouting trucks. We get to pretend that we're Tau a little bit with your infiltrating scout combo, and we can scout a truck up. The metamorphs get out. They go. It was nice knowing you, Chief, and they go suicide themselves into the opponent's army. And then, hey, acolytes would like to move up and get in that truck, and we're just gonna do this next turn. And you can make these really nice staging points that I think are fantastic for GSC. It takes us away from wanting to just deep strike 1,500 points of our army, but the game plan is still tricksy in a way that feels GSC, even though we're not as deep strikey focused as we used to be, and I love it. I think it's really good.
I mean, straight away,
do you want to get into go ahead?
No, I was about to say, like, straight away, just that kind of initial, like, I'm trying to kind of approach this in terms of how I see GSC from the past and in my head, and I automatically think, all right, they're going to pop up everywhere. I'm going to have to start screening, ready for turn 2. But actually, if I went in with that mentality and you just go, first turn, 33 inches, I'm like, oh, and you've cleared my screens, I'm like, uh-oh, I'm in problem zone now. I'm in GSC town, turn 2. That's a huge thing. At 33 inches, plus then offloading and reloading that vehicle, it's really good, powerful mechanics. So I can see exactly your train of thought about getting those efficiencies in with the reroll advances, the charges, and so on and so forth. What about some of the enhancements then?
Yeah, so for the enhancements, all of these are set to only be taken on a Magus, a Primus, or an Icon Ward, which is unfortunate because there would be some funny stuff otherwise, but we're here. So the first one I want to talk about is, well, this would want to be the last one I want to talk about, but it's the Genestealer Reliquant. It is 5 points. The Bearer's unit can reroll Battle Shock. Cool. We got the bad one out of the way. Let me talk about the 3 you're going to take now. So going on. Denunciator of Tyrants. Once again, Magus Primus icon ward. Whenever the bearer's unit makes an attack, if it is targeting a character unit, add 1 to the hit roll and 1 to the wound roll. This is so good. Oh my god. As someone who loves neophytes to death, my first thought was to put it on them, and now all of my shotguns are wounding knights on 5s, and that's just funny. But obviously, you can put it on, metamorphs. They're strength 5. You can in melee with like AP1 damage 2, which you can make AP2. You have 1,000 attacks, and now you're wounding any elite profiles on 4s or 3s. You're wounding big stuff on 5s, and you're just, here's a ton of attacks. Yes, my profile innately doesn't look like it's good at killing you, but I'm just going to roll a bucket of dice, and now you're dead. It's even good. I like it on a flamer unit. As weird as that sounds, but our flamer units are also attached to melee units. And the flamer unit, if I'm shooting something on a point, gets full wound rerolls. So now my strength 3 flamers are wounding big things on 5s with possibly AP1 ignoring cover, full rerolls, and then I'm going to charge you and have basically the same amount of attacks in melee. It just kills people. It's so good.
So is that when it just targets a character, or if a character's in a bodyguard unit, would that apply, or is it just a character unit?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
If it's in a bodyguard, if your 10 Terminators are being led by someone in Terminator Army, I don't know power armor. I refuse to learn their names. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I get +1 to hit and wound against the Terminator squad. I'm picking you up.
I mean, same with like Tau.
That's
because,
just
like,
good.
For example, not that you probably need it on breaches, but that add 1 to the wound roll gets around my -1 to wound because of the Guardian drone. And then obviously with my recent retaliation list that I'm doing, all my crisis suits are led with characters. So that, how many points is it? 10? 15?
I believe it got brought to, oh boy, I haven't looked at it.
It's some amount of points that's still worth it regardless.
It's like 15 or 20. Yeah. It's not even that expensive.
Yeah, that's brutal. I don't like that. What about the deed that speaks to the masses?
Super good. I love this a lot. It's just, anytime I'm rolling a cult ambush roll for battle line specifically, I get to re-roll once a turn. So at first you're like, oh, you're only getting 5 rerolls. Not necessarily, because it's once a turn, right?
Yeah.
The metamorphs, unfortunately, don't get access to it. I would love it if they did. But if you have acolytes that go in on your opponent's turn and they blow something up, and then you're like, hey, there's a nice little melee unit that my guys are attached to, or that are right next to them, or maybe they heroic intervened into you. Your guys die on the turn that they charge something. Cool, I'm going to re-roll that roll. All right, now on my opponent's turn, he comes out, he blows something up. I get to re-roll that roll. And yes, the baseline is just 5 rolls a game. You can get it up to 10, basically, if you're good on what units you're sacrificing and all this type of stuff. I think it's good. It is 25 points. So there is a part of me that's just like, those points could just be another unit, if that makes sense.
Yep.
I think there is a point where you might just streamline your list to where maybe you don't take a lot of the enhancements, because a lot of the power is just in the raw stratagems. They're fantastic. But I think for just a baseline, if you're getting into it, this just helps you interact with your army rule, which is just good, and it's just solid, right? And then that's gonna leave for the last enhancement, Incendiary Inspiration, which this one, to me, the auto take. This is the auto take no matter what. You can leave the other 2 at home if you want. Bring Tyrants because it's just good. This one you need. Magus, Primus, or Acolyte icon word model only. The Bear's unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn which it advanced. That is where you get your 33-inch threat range from the jump. It's so good. Just, you're gonna put this on an icon ward or whoever's joining your metamorphs, and it's good. It's just good. Wow. The mobility is great, especially in an army to where you're re-rolling your advances and you're re-rolling your charges. Suddenly, advancing and charging, pretty good.
Yeah, so you're gonna obviously have that one as the auto include, And then if I was to look at it, it's if I was just picking up GSC from what you've said, it'd be the Incendiary inspiration, the Wad of Tyrants, and then maybe the Deeds that speak to the masses. If you've got the points left near the end.
Yeah, because the reason why I'm not super high on Deeds is that I think a good Xenocreed list is going to have like 2 hybrid metamorph lists. You're going to have some Ridge Runners. You're going to have some Pure Strains, some character support. You're really only going to have like 5 to 6 units that are battle line specifically. And so you think, oh, I'm rerolling Cult Ambush rolls. You're really only doing it for like a third of your army. You really need that, you know? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
To where it's not as flashy as it looks, because that battle line keyword does heavily matter here. Yes, we are a battle line army, but still. Let's wind it back, you know?
What about stratagems? Now, obviously, you'll have gone over a lot of these on your channel, so rather than kind of repeating, what would be the top stratagems that somebody needs to be aware of in this detachment? What are some of the ones that could ruin your opponent's day?
Oh, man. There's like 4, but okay. There's 2 different ones. One is going to give advance and charge. One is going to give assault. That's really good in the detachment, once again, where you're rerolling advances and charges. It's fantastic. In turn 1, the reason you're taking 2 metamorph units is one is going to have the advancement for advance and charge. The other is just you're going to spend the strat to advance and charge. Another thing to where anyone playing into GSC, but also the Tau players, you need to finish off units very specifically, because we have a stratagem called Vengeance for the Mortars. If you were to kill any character, my whole army can get reroll hit rolls of 1 against you. But if you kill an Icon Ward, a Primus, or a Magus, my whole army gets full rerolls to hit against whatever killed them. So if you decide to blow them up with a big old Riptide, I'm going to love that, because now anything and everything in my army gets to reroll hits against that Riptide, right?
Yeah.
You want to weaken the units with your big stuff, and then finish them off with just cheap little whoever cares, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to pop it if it's like a devilfish that just happened to shoot it to death, or like your stealth suits.
Yeah.
You know? So there is a big order of operations thing there, to where if you do it improperly, I will punish you. And then the big one you're going to be hearing about all the time, Frenzied Devotion. It's real simple. Everyone except the character that's attached to the unit gets +1 weapon skill and +1 attack, and all the weapons gain hazardous. Let me tell you, in a glass cannon army, you really don't care if you have hazardous or not. Your guys were dead the moment they got into combat. Anyways, all of the melee that's worth anything natively hits on 3s, so now you're on 2s.
Yeah.
And you're going from like, the metamorphs have a strike profile. They have a strike and a sweep profile, right? The strike profile is 3 attacks on 3s at 5-1-2. With a Ridge Runner hitting, they're at 5-2-2. You're going from 30 attacks to 40 attacks hitting on 2s at 5-2-2. That's just gonna kill things. It's so good. Oh my god.
5-2-2.
I love it to death.
Is there any ways of adding +1 to wound and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, if they happen to be a character unit and you just have Denunciator Tyrants, hey, go crazy, kid. Yeah. That's great.
So just to simplify it, whatever it touches in the correct order and the stratagems and stuff, it could just kill it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've used this to just make sure that I've used this against Riptides.
Exactly.
I've used this specifically to kill Riptides, of being like, hey, normally you look at this and it shouldn't be killing this big thing. Anyways, here's 50 dice. Good luck, kid. I hope you like making 4-ups.
Yeah. It's basically death by numbers. Typical GSC.
Exactly. 1,000 cuts, and I love that.
Yeah, and you mentioned there's those that I straight away, I'm already thinking in my head, whoa, okay. What are the other 2 that you said that you're going to, because there's 4 in total.
Yeah, well, the other 2 was the first ones I talked about. There's a stratagem to give a unit advance and charge. And if a character unit is already touching the unit you're engaged with, you can reroll charges. So this is good for units that don't have characters in them. And then the 4th one was give weapons assault.
Nice.
1 CP, just full assault. That's great, especially when I have, say, maybe I only want one metamorph squad to go in turn 1. Cool. Instead of spending advance and charge on the second unit, they advance up, and I give 10 D6 hand flamers assaults. And I say, hello, nice screen. Can you please put it on your tray? It's just gone. Good.
And what's the profile of the hand flamer?
It's strength 3, AP 0, damage 1. You can have a Ridge Runner hit whatever you need to give it +1 AP. It's not going to kill anything and everything in the game, but 10d6 certainly hurts.
Yeah. Well, it's an average of 30, but then, yeah, you're just going for those screens. That's its job.
Yeah, exactly. It's just to clear screens. You know, if you've got, whether it's Pathfinders or just like 10 crew, you certainly say, do we need to roll the dice?
No.
We're gonna do this, and then hey, you had like a Riptide that was like maybe 3 or 4 inches behind it. I've got a 7 or an 8 inch charge now, sure, but I'm re-rolling that charge.
Yeah,
it's a character unit.
I see where you're going with that.
And there's just ways to just crack open the opponent's army and be like, your screens didn't matter in the first place, you know. So you got to be very careful with that.
And then because the screens are gone, you can pick your engagements better. What are some of the
much better?
So obviously we talked about the detachment, the enhancements, the stratagems. So what would your top units that you pick in this detachment, kind of what kind of should we expect in this list?
Yeah. So the big one I've been talking about, of course, is the hybrid metamorphs. They're fantastic. The reason why they're so annoying is they base have a 5-up feel no pain, but when they attach with an icon ward who likes to give whatever unit she joins a 5-up feel no pain, they hold hands, and that 5-up turns into a 4-up feel no pain. They're only 1 wound each, but that still can just be annoying, right? I've had it to where stuff shooting in at damage too, and 4-ups certainly like to ignore math. Yeah. You either make them or you don't, and I've had it to where they only kill 1 or 2 things, and on top of that, they have a blood search move, so every time you shoot them, they move D6, and they can get into combat. So you got to be really careful with that. They have the hand flamers, of course. They auto move 6 if you bring them with auto pistols. Although I think just the threat of the D6 just makes them good enough as they are. So you have this unit that scouts, 4-up feel no pain, a bunch of hand flamers, and then their melee is either 5 attacks on 3s at 411 or 3 attacks on 3s at 512. It just chunks things. It's fantastic. I love them to death. In Xenocreed, I think people should be bringing 2 10-mans, and they're just good.
And they're called the hybrid metamorphs, right?
Yes, hybrid metamorphs.
And their brood surge, what does that do?
The brood surge, yeah, that's the one I was talking about. To where if you shoot me and I lose any amount of models, I move D6 inches and I can move into combat.
Nice.
So there are, yeah, it's really good. I love it to death. It just makes stuff weird. If you go and you charge something on a point, and you have this 10-man squad with 10 D6 hand flamers, so if you walk at me with something cheap, I'm going to overwatch it and just kill it. If you walk at me with something big and shoot me with it, I'm probably just going to get into combat with you and hit you first with the Frenzy Devotion, so +1 weapon skill and attack and all this stuff. And it's just an annoying unit to deal with, especially when it's made even better by the next unit I want to talk about, which is the Achilles Ridge Runner. This is... You're gonna see at least 2 in every list. I could see 4 if you take 2. They can come in squads of 2, but mostly you're gonna see them by themselves. They are a vehicle that is T7, a 3-up save, 8 wounds, 12-inch movement. They scout 9. They're fine. Their main thing you want though is their ability Crossfire. Whenever they shoot something, for the rest of the turn, any attacks that go into them are +1 AP. It used to be for the rest of the shooting phase, anything is +1 AP. Now it affects melee. This is fantastic. You're going to see at least 2 cars with mortars that are going to go tag something and say, hey, all my flamers are 1 AP, ignoring cover, or all of my melee goes from AP 1 to AP 2. These are fantastic. They can take a mortar. They can take A missile launcher, you're never going to see the missile launcher though, because the other profile they can take is just a mining laser, which is a D3 shot last cannon, strength 12, AP3, D6 plus 1 damage. It's good. You can give them a spotter to give them +1 ballistic skill. The mortars are probably going to have survey auger, so they remove cover. They're cheapest chips. They're like 75 points a pop. They just make the army work. Every detachment wants them, even the melee detachments, because now their buff works in melee, right? And yeah, the list starts at 1850 because you at least put 2 of these in there.
Yeah, I can definitely see. Scout Move 9 is so good as well. Like, it's just underrated. Like,
yeah,
Piranhas have the Scout Move 9. It's just a really good way of just alphaing, getting into position, and obviously getting in position as well to maybe do secondaries. And a T8, 3-up save, and a 12-inch move. How many wounds it got? 8?
It's wounds? It's T7. Yeah, it's 8 wounds.
Sorry,
it's T7.
T7, 8 wounds. Nice.
Yeah, it's just thick enough to where like you need actual firepower to go into it, right? And if you're taking the mortars, most of the time people just sit the cars in the back corner. I like playing aggressive with them and getting them up because yes, a 36-inch mortar is good and it will tag just about anything and everything you want. But especially with like the ones with the mining lasers, a Scout 9 on that and moving 12, it's very hard to put a transport in a spot that a 21-inch moving vehicle can't get a line on it and shoot it, right? At least in the terrain that we play over here in the States, it's a lot more open than like WTC. You're gonna be popping stuff over here, and I love it. Fantastic vehicle. And then yeah, normally I'll have one in my back corner, and the second one with a mortar will be scouting up to be in a spot to do some type of secondary, right? There's been times to where I've had a games to where turn 1 it goes in the middle just so I can like, that is my area denial.
Yeah.
Cool. It's gonna tag something. I'm gonna shoot that something. It's gonna kill. It's great.
And what other units would you choose to be in this list? What's another focus point that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think a big thing is the trucks. The trucks, we haven't seen them at all. At least there were some lists that were taking Goliath trucks, but these are our rhinos, right? They carry 12. They're like 85 points for a T9 3-up save with 10 wounds that moves 12. If you have the metamorphs in them, obviously they'll get the scout, which is super nice. They have a demolition charge, weirdly enough, on them, so anything within 6 is funny. But the main one of the main things that makes them good is they have fire support, which is that thing to where in your shooting phase, if it shot something, whatever got out of it has full rerolls to wound in the shooting phase against it. That's really good when the thing you want to put in here is 10 D6 hand flamers.
Yeah.
It's so like we've turned into a sisters detachment or like or salamanders or something. We have so many flamers in this. It's insane. It's also, if you do take a flamer acolyte squad and actually take the demolition charges, there is a pretty nice thing to where you can lead them with a Primus, and yes, natively they have rerolls to wounds against anything on a point, but if they're not on a point, you can still get a way to have these demo charges with full rerolls to hit and to wound. That's just value. That's good. I really like it. It's 85 points. They're a great staging platform. You know, in Xenocreed, I like scouting them up with the metamorphs.
Yeah.
And then they get emptied. Metamorphs go up front and go be a problem for my opponent. And then acolytes get in, or even neophytes get in, just so I can take them to a point and go say, hey, here's 10 guys that are going to sticky this objective for me because you can't get out of your DZ. Yes, you can shoot me off. I'm going to keep scoring this point, right? But you can keep reloading them to keep doing this over and over and over again. I love it. Yeah, trucks are good. And yeah, that's my base like 3 units that I think are really great for Xenocreed. You're going to be filling it out with a lot more, but yeah, hybrid metamorphs taken with an icon ward as well. The Ridge Runners, that's just in every GSC list. That if there's ever a chance to where anyone playing against GSC can shoot a Ridge Runner and kill it, do so. It will make your life much better. And then yeah, the Goliath trucks, they're just good. They do the job. A lot of the stuff isn't really flashy, but it just gets things done, right?
So, for me, just like educating myself while I'm listening to you, it feels a little bit like, in order to really get a crack into this problem, is that the best way of trying to tackle into this is to, I'm not going to say go first, because, that will help, but trying to demech them as quickly as possible. Whether you lose pieces or not, if you can trade by going, I know I'm going to lose some stuff anyway, but I just need to either tag your trucks or deal with them. Would you say that that is something that you would be worried about if somebody did that to you?
Yeah, I think also GSC has kind of had this problem to where amount of activations can really hurt us, right? We obviously everyone in the game kind of doesn't like dealing with a bunch of stuff in transports because it's rough to deal with, but a lot of Xenocreed lists can be very monophase to where we're just wasting our stuff getting into melee with these getting into melee with these transports and then dying to whatever comes out, right? I think tagging the transports is really good. I think if you can get line of sight on the transports before they get close to you, popping them early is fantastic as well. But then just making sure that when I come out to kill whatever I need to kill, I'm trading down. Put your sacrificial pieces up and then be in a spot to where, okay, whatever is here, I can effectively kill. When I've been playing against Holodiscus, one of his things is that he'll put the Riptides or Ghost Keels up front when I've got like Metamorphs right in front of him, right? And he'll have another unit shoot, kill as many things into the Metamorphs, and then when they Brood Surge, if they were to move into combat with the Riptide, hey, I can still shoot. I'm going to pour into you now.
Yeah.
There's ways to handle it, and yeah, you do have to be smart with it. Make us. GSC still wants to pick the fight first, right? Obviously, every game in the army wants to do that, but GSC, especially being Glass Cannon Army, we want to be the first one to make the first punch. So if you're able to say, "I'll let you punch me, but you're gonna punch me in the shoulder,"
yeah,
you're not gonna get the chin. That's what you want to do, right? You want to lessen our damage, because if we don't have damage, well, we certainly don't have any defensive ability. We die when you shoot us, so. Now we're really losing our efficiency.
And I think the one thing that stands out to me, and it's a similar problem going into, say, T-Sons or Sisters, is that, or Orcs, for example, my advice for Tau players is that there is a two-stage problem here. Number one, the dudes with the hand flavors, remind me what they're called again?
Metamorphs.
Metamorphs. So your breachers are great at just clearing as many GSC as you want. But the problem is, in order to shoot your range 10 blaster, you're going to get in hand flamer range. So
yes, you gotta be within 12.
Okay, you'll be strength 3, wounding on -1. It should be still 5s, but it's still a lot.
Still 5s.
Yeah, but it's still 30,
just a lot.
30, 10. Your AP. Let's just assume your AP. Can you be AP 1 on Overwatch?
Not in Overwatch. We're base AP null.
You're going to be losing 5. If you you ignore cover, so you lose 5 breaches.
That's a lot.
5 breaches.
Trust me, as someone whose most hated word is the word breachers, I love that. I love the thought of that.
So the two ways of getting around this is that you don't just put the breachers all in front. You ask them where the flamers are, and you try to position. Okay, you're only getting 3 or 4 flamers in range, or something like that. Being very careful at your positioning, but then the surge move, usually what I advise is that against any surge moves, you stay 7.1 away so that they cannot go into engagement range. But that's already adding a lot of layers to try and pull off, but you will probably kill the unit anyway in one activation, even with 5 breachers doing 15 shots, you'll still probably kill the unit. I mean, what's the size of this unit? Is it just a unit of 10?
It's a unit of 10, 32 mil bases. They'll have a 4-up feel no pain, 5-up armor.
Ooh,
they die to breachers.
Yeah, so being very careful in terms of where you position your models for the Overwatch, because you're going to get Overwatched. It's just a matter of how much damage. You can't really afford to lose 5 breaches. You want to lose as many as possible. So doing that with that combo, and then the surge moves. If you really don't kill the unit, you need to make sure you're 7.1 away. to stop them from going and tagging you, and then nothing else can shoot that unit, which
Well,
is a problem.
It even can be more than that, because the Brood Surge, it's not once a turn. It's every time you shoot me. So if you're just like, oh, I'll shoot with the Preachers. Okay, he rolled a 3 and got closer to me. All right, I'll have some SMS go and maybe pick up like 1 or 2 more guys. Cool, I rolled a 4. I'm in combat with your Breachers now. Yeah. Great job.
Yeah, so you need to be very careful with your activations, like you said before. And then obviously the vehicles, with you being T7, 8 wounds on the Ridge Runners, it gets a bit swingy. They don't have an invuln, but they have a 3-up save.
Yeah.
So, solo piranhas could possibly be the hero and go and pop those. They're fast. They can get there. But then obviously, if a Riptide decides to shoot one, it's just dead because it's flat 4 damage, so on and so forth.
Oh yeah, it's gone.
It's gone.
It's just gone.
Puff gone. So you will probably my thought process is dealing with those Ridge Runners is meet speed with speed. So piranhas are really good. Infiltrating ghost kills can probably get some nice little line of sights on there, or pressurized ghost kills aren't necessarily great for GSC to deal with. They can deal with them, but it takes a lot more to down them. So things like that, Tau players listening in, those are the kind of things that I would be using to try and tackle these tiny trucks and the Ridge Runners. And we've already talked about the Hand Flamer unit. The Goliath trucks, yeah, they're still decent, but any dedicated anti-tank, but you've got to get to them, and that's the problem. They're going to be hiding, you'll have to overextend to get to them, so you really need to think about how you're tackling that problem. And if you can't get line of sight on them, then the best thing you can do is tag them in such a way where you're being thoughtful about heroic intervention, because the GSC player will definitely heroic intervene and have dudes around the vehicle. But if not, if you can spot mistakes made by they've not had units hugging the tank for heroic intervention, tagging it, wrapping it in such a way where the models can't optimally be placed when they're getting out. I think that's the key thing for me that I've been looking to do. So fundamental rules, basically, and plays.
Yeah. It like, people have experience with this list, because I almost akin the playstyle to like CSM when they were doing like Chosen and Rhinos.
Yeah.
Right. They're gonna put Rhinos behind a wall, and then the Chosen are gonna get out and they're gonna go charge something and they're gonna go kill something. That's the same thing I want to do with Metamorphs, and it's the same thing I want to do with the mining weapon acolytes. If you put the ghost kills, or God forbid you put a Riptide in the midfield, I've got a bunch of anti-vehicle 4-up 3 damage guys that are like, hey.
Yep.
You and me, buddy. Let's have a date. It's finding ways, especially a lot of GSC players are probably going. Listen, we haven't been playing with transports for like 2 editions now. We're a little new to this. All right, help us here. We're probably going to do the thing to where we put them on the other side of the wall. A good thing as well is just screen that wall. If you can put some pathfinders there or anything else, just an inch away, so I can't disembark on the other side of the wall and run past you to go kill what I want. There are ways to where you at least stop my movement to where I'm too far away for a charge.
Yeah.
Turn 1 is pretty lethal, but when the game starts going, if you can find that scenario to where like, oh, my guys are going to get out of this fish and then run up and just hold hands and stop them from physically moving by me. It's the same thing I want to do to you. Just do it to me. We want to do the same thing to each other. So yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of counterplay that Tau can do in the GSC.
That's kind of nice little segment, because one of the things we were going to talk about was like Tau Empire versus GSC, but we've obviously kind of talked about it throughout, having this natural discussion around your units, your ability, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's threat range, managing threat ranges, using basic fundamentals like blocking, positional decisions, charges, stuff like that, just to really clog up the board. So screens are important, and tactfully thinking about order of operations when it comes to what's shooting what and what tends to finish off the unit. So it's really cool knowing that you're thinking about the advancing charging and putting the pressure on. And I think probably if I was to, with a broad paintbrush, just like kind of stroke over the whole success that you're having, not to downplay some of the success that you've had, but you are very much talking about, I'm going to dominate the early game and threaten you, and then if you try to be too defensive and stay all the way back, then hey, cool, I win board presence and I win mission and I get into position anyway. So if an opponent decided to be too cagey against you, you can just ascend to control the battle and the flow of the point scoring. So
Yeah,
What would you?
GSC tools to punish whichever kind of playstyle your opponent goes to.
Yeah,
To where if you play too defensively, cool. I'm just gonna sit on the board and I'm just gonna win the game
yeah.
because I'm gonna sit on this primary thing. Cool. Um, but the question I cut you off with, I'm guessing what's the counterplay to GSC, right?
To a point, little small things that you would say to, I suppose, do to GSC players. If you give us a small little snippet, not all your secrets, but one thing that you would say to people to do to really ruin a GSC player's day.
You can't half-ass whichever direction you go into. You can't spread out. GSC loves to kill flanks. If you
Yep.
go into three corners, I'm going to kill a corner a turn,
Yep.
right? And that's just going to debilitate you. Um, so you either do two things. You set up to where you are sitting on 2 points and you're just kind of playing relaxed and you're playing back and you let me come to you, which I don't want to do. I want to be in the mid board and just the more chaos there is, apparently GSC is secretly a chaos faction because the more chaos there is, the more I love it, right?
Yep.
Um, that or you do the thing to where you treat any kind of Xenos person who's doing too many backflips and oh here's all my tricks, you just punch him in the face.
Yep.
You just run at me. So it's either you stay back and you establish a base to where whatever I attack and try and pick at, something can react to, or you say I'm going to be a World Eaters player, everything is scouting forward, and I'm going to be in your DZ. Because what that does is it puts pressure on me. I don't have anywhere to put my blips because you're in every corner, but in a way that is just, it's giving me a headache, right? It's stressing me out. So either go, everyone advances forward, or everyone stays back and lets me advance to you. There is no, I'm going to put some stuff here. I'm going to put some stuff in the mid board. Maybe I'll put some stuff in the corner over here. You do that, I win. Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
mean, perfect, because two things why I can tell you've been playing Holodiscus a lot. The two things that I absolutely have as a fundamental Tau philosophy towards the game is you have your non-negotiable objective marker, which is the one in your deployment zone, and you have a fortify objective, which is the one that you just go, right, I want my two objectives, cool, don't worry about any of the rest of them, let your opponent make decisions, and then you can go and deny or sabotage their objective that they're trying to hold outside of their DZ. And it's that ebb and flow of the game where you don't overstretch, you just concentrate your little mini castles, if you will, and react. And like I said at the beginning of this video, GSC and Tau have a lot of similar philosophies within how they approach the battle, and it's just who blinks first. And I think that's a prime example from your perspective of what you're saying to do against the GSC, and what I obviously have been teaching my students and in the Puretide Program. So this, I mean, I just want a game against GSC now, man. I want to see it all the time. But no, it's really useful stuff. So I think to summarize, the last point we should talk about is obviously what next, like the meta at the moment. It's all over the place. Everybody's kind of frantically going, I have no bloody idea what's going to happen. We've had unprecedented levels of change, and we're all just thinking, well, shit. What do we do? Like, how do we approach the game now? There's the new missions, so on and so forth. So, what are your thoughts going into meta? What are some of your bad matchups that you think are going to cause you a problem? And what are some of the absolute golden ones that you're thinking, I will destroy that? So what's your thoughts on the meta at the moment with GSC?
Yeah, so for the meta, a lot of people are saying that GSC is the worst army in the game. I don't see that at all. Um, I think I think there's a lot of times where people put us like a tier below where we actually should be, just because the player base is so small that they look at our data sheets and go, what is going on here? I think any good GSC player who takes this faction seriously, and especially faction specialists, are going to do really well. I think we're in a spot to where we have some really great matchups, but there are definitely going to be some matchups that are it's just rough. A lot of our anti-big is tied to anti-vehicle. So naturally, Tyranids, demons, anything that their keyword is monster instead of vehicle, I think is a very hard matchup for us if they bring a lot of those things. Um, I'm interested to see how our presser matchups are before, because I was getting to the point to where like orcs was doable, right? Especially bully boys.
Yeah.
You bring 120 neophytes and you just go, you don't have the attacks. I'm just gonna sit here and score points.
Yeah.
I Something like that. I think also in terms of how the game is in terms of points, and the secondaries are right now, a lot of the secondaries can be very brutal. A lot of the actions completing at the end of your opponent's turn can be very rough. But I think GSC is in a good spot to still just go back to being a good scoring army, right?
Mm.
Especially with, we've got a lot of cheap units now. There's good scoring ones where it's just a 70-point acolyte squad to go drop down and establish a locus.
Yep.
I have a 50-point Sanctus that's a lone op that if he has a knife, says you can't overwatch me. That's just really good. That's just fantastic. I don't care if you have a redeemer. I'm going in the midpoint and I'm doing the action I want to do. And also the mission rules can just flip how GSC plays. Uh, Recently we was just at an RT and we pulled the mission that says battle line can do actions and shoot, and they can do actions while engagement range. I certainly had 20 neophytes drop into my opponent's DZ and just press deploy homers or establish locus, and like didn't matter if you were tied up. I got to shoot something when I dropped, and I'm just cool. I'm gonna keep pressing this button.
Yep.
And I'm gonna keep scoring points, and I'm 20 guys that regenerate, and good luck.
Yeah.
I think GSC is in a much better spot than people think it is, because I think a lot of 40k players have uh the feeling that if I don't kill my opponent, I don't win the game.
Yeah.
And that's not true. We've seen this time and time again. Sisters before their codex didn't have to kill a lot of stuff. They could just score points. Tyranids have been a thing this entire edition, and they don't kill anything. Well, now they do, but they didn't kill anything.
Yep.
They just scored points. Even back in the day with like 9th edition Necrons, they just would score 100 points before you fully killed them. And I think GSC aren't in the position to where, oh, we can only score, we can't kill. We can definitely kill. But our scoring potential is much higher than people are like realizing. So I think they're a good mid tier. I don't think they are the biggest threat in the game. Obviously, that's like Sisters, Thousand Suns. It does hurt that we can't do the uppy downy things as well anymore. You know, I really liked having the Grey Knights and like Necron Hypercrypt matchups to where like both of us are like, oh, what is going on right now? but I think we're good. Like if I go into Knights and I have a bunch of units with anti-vehicle 4-up, 3 damage, I'm just like, okay, go. Hell yeah.
And yeah. I think in terms of the way they I kind of like, I approached the meta differently when the Tau Codex came out, because I was like, yeah, cool, guns, damage, brilliant, I can see all of that. Nah, I'm taking Kroot. This is fun, because it had so much jank, tools, bodies, and I just played the mission. I played what I knew, and I was like, well, I can do this, this, and this, reactive moves, so on and so forth. So I looked at 40k, I practiced what I preach. I thought, right, okay, well, everybody's talking about damage, Monkar, Kion, blah, 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 retaliation. And I was like, well, actually, it's not about, like you said, it's not about damage. It's about how do I consistently score points? How do I utilize core fundamental rules? And how do I improve as a player? And obviously, Tau players don't necessarily do charging. But I was certainly going, well, I'm always charging. But what I want to really understand is more about the piling consolidation. And I'll be honest, it took a while, because unless you're running a pure combat army, that it's not really your focus point. But when I played like the Kroot, it was very much like, oh, wow, okay, I can pull off loads of stuff with the pilings and consolidations and things like that you can do. Heroic Intervention, for example, has now got so much better in the game because of the CP. It now costs beautiful. So like that to me feels like you've got all the foundations from what you've described, whilst also doing selected damage to key things that you can just pick apart. And I think I agree. I think you're in a really good spot to score points rather than damage. And you've also got the added bonus that everybody's going to shit the bed when they see GSC, because they're like, oh no, not this again, not this again.
I have no practice into this.
Oh my god, no practice. And it's that element of surprise, which is exactly what I did with the crew. It's like, crew? Ah, such a meme. And I'm there going, come closer, let me show you. And then they're like, after the game, it's like, fuck them, man. Crew bullshit.
Yeah, Crew had this thing to where they just said, hey, my opponent doesn't get to play the game. Right? I'm going to play all of the game, and you're going to play none of the game.
Yeah.
And Index GSC could do that very well. There are 3-inch Deep Strike strat, which is just in Host of Ascension now. But it was... I had all these infiltrating Pure Strains, right? And they would move 8, and they had advance and charge.
Yeah.
And they would go, and they would stand in front of my opponent, turn 1. And they say, you're not leaving your Deep Strike zone. And then turn 2... people would be like, oh, you're going to bring in your demo charges, you're going to blow something up. No, I'm going to put neophytes 3 inches in front of you, and I'm going to string out 20 guys in front of your entire army, and you're not leaving your DZ again.
Yep.
And now I have this massive lead. GSC likes to play attrition games to where I feel like we're very strong in the late game. So if we're able to also secure an early game plan, that's why I like being aggressive. It's debilitating.
Yeah.
It's so rough. So... yeah, in terms of scoring, GSC I think is just super strong, strong.
I'm gonna drop in a little bit of a secret sauce that I've done in the past, and I'm pretty sure that you as a GSC player could also do the same thing. Have you seen that WTC meme of old where there's that guy with the Kroot versus the White Scars, and he just places all those models and goes, yeah, you ain't coming in now. So what I used to do with crew is when they killed the unit, I'm there going, oh no! And then next turn I'll bring him in, and I'll place the 20-man unit all around the edges of the 6 inches of the board like that, literally covering. It's like, imagine a search and destroy. I was like, yep, cool, I'm holding it over here. Yep, perfect, brilliant. Okay, so you can't come in anywhere on the board now. And then what I'm going to go for a 9-inch charge, and you better hope I don't make this charge, because if I make this charge, this whole unit's moving towards but blocking out all of the board. And then one player was like, what the hell are you doing? And they're going, you'll see this. And they're like, bro, I can't even play the game now. You blocked out the entire board. Grey Knights didn't like it. Armies that were relying on Deep Strike didn't like it. And I'm pretty sure GSC had the ability to do just that.
Oh, yeah. I love that you brought this up, because at the Bay Area Open, which was like a month or 2 ago, I did that exact same thing to my round 1 opponent. It was playing Space Marines, a little lieutenant that came out in the new box with the Tyranid bits on his arm that give the rerolls to him. He put him in Deep Strike, right? And I was like, cool. So turn 2, I'm going to put neophytes 3 inches away from everything. He didn't fully kill the unit. And so I charged him in. They're all on his home point now. And then I brought Acolytes in on the back 3-inch deep striking and basically kept that out. And he's only in his back corner, so I had 120 neophytes. I had 2 squads just just strings. And he goes to deep strike, he can't put him, and he died in reserves. It was... I was like, I'm so sorry, but I've never done this before, and I want to do it. It doesn't matter this much. There's probably better plays, but I just want to do it.
And that's the thing, right? It's just like, it's something where I've seen it happen loads, okay? You're in like a really kind of tricksy game, and, you know, the clock is a huge concern because you both have to like go into hyper-focus mode, and what you're looking for is to identify something so small that actually just wins you the game. And the moment it's like a light bulb thing, you just go, oh, well, I'm just going to screen the entire board with this play. And then the look on the opponent's face is like, you bastard. And you're like, yeah. And it's just a way of just going, don't care about damage, board control, wins, done. So I think it's hilarious to pull off, but for anybody thinking and maybe getting a bit blindsided by all of these like rules and stuff that we talked about, the enhancement stratagems, GSC can just flip that switch and go, actually, I don't need any rolls of dice to win. I can just go, done. And it's so powerful.
Oh, hold on. I think my
there we go.
Camera froze on you. Okay,
there
cool.
You're back.
All right.
Yeah.
No, yeah, you're right. You're right about that. Because there are times to where it's just like, I can kill your whole army, or I can just score 100 and you scored 20. because you just had to be charging neophytes all in your deployment zone all day. Like there's a lot of assumptions with GSC to where they're like, oh hey, everything just dies, right? My neophytes are a T3 body with a 5-up armor and 1 wound. Yeah, if you shoot them, sure. There's 20 guys. They regenerate. There's times to where you just don't have the attacks. I've charged Angron with neophytes just because people roll ones.
Yeah.
Shocker. Hear me out. People roll ones, and there's certainly times to where it's just like you don't have the attacks to make sure I'm entirely dead, and every dude is 2 OC. I'm gonna take a point from you. I'm gonna tag stuff that doesn't want to be tagged. I was playing into Iron Storm on that game, and he certainly had 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts, and I dropped a bunch of mining lasers, blew up one, and I was like, cool, I'm charging the others. We're getting in here. So long as one lives, that's all I need. That's great.
Classic. But I think that's a great way to do a little bit of a segue. So
yeah,
you've got some content coming up on your channel. You're currently going to be filming them over the next week or so. So what are you going to be doing over the next coming couple of weeks for your YouTube channel and your GSC cult?
Yeah, so when I originally started like being in the community of the GSC community, I wanted to help people with strategy and like figure out the cult. It's a very niche faction. It's very small, right? I think our pick rate is akin to that of Death Watch, but that's still a power armor army, so more people are going to play that, I still think. When I got into GSC, I couldn't find anything on how to play the army, so I'm trying to do that. So I've given a couple guides on what I think is like the best attachments in order, and like how to buy into GSC, because it's a very expensive army. Any way you can save money is great. But now I'm going to start focusing back on what I think I'm good at, which is talking strategy, letting people know the things that might not be evident at first glance. A lot of GSC is GW giving, here's these random tools, figure it out, and I love that. That's my favorite part. So I'm going to be working on videos that take a detachment and fully just talk about anything and everything we can do in that detachment. And then just going over base GSC strategy. I know there's going to be a lot of newer players, so I want to help with that up front, but then also, helping them like, hey, here's how to get to an intermediate level. Here's how to get to an advanced level. Here's where I think I'm at, right? So that's what I'm trying to help people with.
Yeah, and absolutely hats off to you. I think you've got, obviously you've got the performance background. Those of you who have either lost to you, or people that maybe see your lists and go, oh my god, GSC is doing really well. I wanna use that list, and then they're gonna be like, I've got the list. How the hell do I use it? And it's going to be really important for you to obviously. You don't owe the community anything. We do this because we do love to talk about our beloved faction. But you're giving people premium advice from someone who's clearly experienced with the faction, and obviously you are heavily involved in the the cult Discord. You're obviously doing your YouTube channel. So for those of you listening, go and check out these videos. And obviously you've already got pre-existing content. You're going to be doing a lot more. And I really find it fascinating. And I don't play GSC. I have no desire to play GSC like I do with Tau. But just hearing a faction specialist talk about why they love a faction and talking about how they use it and why they take particular combos and their thought process is super interesting at the moment, because 40k has blown up massively over the last couple of years. And, most of us will sit around on our lunch breaks or doing whatever, just listening, reading, playing, thinking about playing, rolling dice randomly. We're obsessed. And all of this content is great for all viewers. But honestly, go and check out your the YouTube. I'll put in the links below. And I'm really looking forward to your next couple of content videos that you put out there. So, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing another video with Floof for our members over in the Discord. It's going to be the Patreon members only on the Shasel level, and it's going to be part of my Faction Focus videos that I'm going to be doing over the next couple of months and talking about, you know, the new hotness and what to look out for, how to beat them effectively. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail within that video. So if you are interested in joining, the link is in the description below, and obviously when you go to the WOP website, it will give you a couple of options. You have got Pathfinder, Shasper, and Shasel. This is going to be specific to Shasels, so it's geared towards the more competitive players that are wanting to chase those ITC points or go to events and do consistently well. Which, my final question to you is, what have you got planned from a tournament perspective over the next couple of months? Will we be seeing you in big events like the LVO in January?
Yeah. You'll see me in LVO. Don't worry. You're talking to LVO's next winner, so look
I love it.
to that.
Well, I'll see you in the final. I'll see you in the final, bro.
Hell yeah, bro. That's gonna be great at top table.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been trying to travel a little bit more. I might be able to go to Tacoma.
Okay.
Here in like I think it's 2-3 weeks out, right? But anything towards like Bay Area Open, which just happened, SoCal Open, anything on the West Coast, I'm making it a point to try and get to, and then yeah, I will be at LVO as well.
All right, guys. Look for this handsome gentleman with hair on top of his head. If you want any GSC advice, like you'll get loads of people come over and be like, "Oh mate, I'm going against GSC. How do I beat them?" And you're like, yeah, just do this thing." And
just run at them.
Or GSC players come up to you and be like, "Oh man, cool. You know, I like your list and stuff like that." So you seem a really approachable guy. You know, we've only just met today and we're already having a fantastic discussion. So go and check out your stuff and also go and check them out in person at these events. So anyway, mate, I'd honestly really like to thank you for your time. It's been a real eye-opener for me on a faction that I've actually been a little bit worried about, because I've been saying to my members, I think we're going to have a GSC problem. The cult is coming. I can feel it in my bones. And, you know, I've had this perfect opportunity to talk to you, the specialist within the GSC Overlord. I don't know what their equivalent is, but I'm just going to call you a GSC Overlord. Overlord.
Sure.
So, anyway, thank you so much, mate, and it's been a pleasure. And for those viewers listening in, do the normal thing, like, subscribe, comment, and do the same over on Floof's channel, the Nexus Floof. So, thank you very much. Take care, everyone. Speak to you soon.
Bye.